I am Iron Man.
We're here to talk about the MCU in its entirety up to this point. 22 movies, I believe. We're going to talk about the 21 that have been released up to this point and rank them for our audience out there.
Yes, in honor of next week's Avengers Endgame, and also to celebrate our 3-year anniversary as Cinema Gulp. So without further ado, let's get started. John, you want to do the honors?
0 to hero.
I like that. I'm just going to say right off the bat, I don't dislike any of these movies, actually.
Yeah.
During my rankings systems, I realized I don't dislike any of these, so I hesitate to say worst, but I would say, least good or whatever.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that point completely. As I was trying to go through and rank them, I realized there's no film in the entire MCU that I dislike that I think is just total crap. Starting off with my least favorite. This one maybe is a shocker to some people because I think it falls higher in most people's ranking, but I am just not a fan of Thor, the original Thor. I just didn't think that this movie worked really all that well. It looks so fake. The whole movie looks really fake in terms of the special effects and bringing Asgard to life. It just seems like a muddled mess in that first movie. I think as other Thor films have progressed, they've done a better job of realizing Asgard. But that first film, it just doesn't work at all. Thor is not a compelling character till later in the MCU. As we've said, all the films are still entertaining, but this one just is the least entertaining for me and just has a lot of problems in the filmmaking department.
Okay, and going towards my least favorite in the MCU, Thor is just not a popular character early on in the MCU history. I'm going with Thor the Dark World. Not because I think the production value is bad. It's so amped up from the first one, where the first one feels like it had about half the budget. But that's the good thing about the first one, is what it did with its small budget. The Dark World is, I don't even want to call it a mess. It's just boring and it's bland. And Thor has the least amount of dialogue he ever has in any Thor movie. When Rene Russo, his mother, dies, there's just no fucking weight to it. You don't care. They're using that, like, whatever his name is, something Doyle, like his soundtrack, to try to like boost up the emotional impact of the mom dying. And who fucking cares? Like, who is this person? I didn't. And yeah, they have to bring Loki back in there because someone needs to act like a charismatic hero in this movie. Natalie Portman, just the whole circumstantial bullshit of how she's shoehorned into this narrative. It's so boring and stupid, and they had to bring back Big Boobs from Two Girls in a Coffee Shop, or whatever the hell that show's called. And it sounds like I'm just like hating the shit out of this movie. I'm not. It's just, talk about a filler movie that doesn't progress the story at all for anybody in the MCU, including Thor himself. So for me, it's The Dark World.
Next on my list for least favorite, coming in at number 20, is Iron Man 2. I think many people have felt that, as you said with the last thing you mentioned, filler. Iron Man 2 feels like a lot of filler to me. Too many stories crammed into one film, trying to...
Sequelitis.
Very much sequelitis, and so much setup for Avengers, and even the... Thor, the original Thor film, and Captain America, they're set up for all that stuff going on. It just doesn't work. There's no compelling action in the film. MCU is still at the beginning. They hadn't fully figured out exactly what the tone was going to be across every movie. Now that they've implemented every film as the same kind of film. So this one still has those elements in place, but they just don't work as well as they do now. Robert Downey Jr. is still great as Tony Stark, and that's really the only thing that saves the movie in my opinion. Otherwise, I would probably land this at the very last place. But he's still very entertaining, and so that's why it stays a little bit above Thor for me.
I have Iron Man 2 next as well, for almost all the same reasons that you have. It still has the charm. It would have ended up last, but it still has the charm from certain characters. The narrative is just a giant muddled mess, and there's so much wasted from Ivan Vanko, from Mickey Rourke giving it his all but giving nothing to do. Justin Hammer should have been explored in further movies because he was so great. But yeah, what they tried to do with this movie is it's a comic line where it was called Devil in a Bottle, I believe. And that was where Tony Stark becomes an alcoholic. And unfortunately, this movie only touches on that for maybe one or two scenes where he's trying to suppress what's happening to his body with alcohol. And then the whole party scene, which is kind of fun but pointless. Though it's kind of a fun finale ending, there's no threat. You're never scared for anybody. You know exactly what's going to happen, and it's Iron Man fighting another Iron Man in another Iron Man suit. So
moving on to number 19. For me, that's going to be The Incredible Hulk. And yeah, this was a film that was made before the MCU knew what it wanted to be at this point, so it didn't have the tone that is the template that is set in stone at this point for the MCU. The humor that they do try to have in this movie is terrible. It lands like a Hulk-sized turd sliding down the bowl. Whenever they try to be funny, or there's a couple moments to try to be callbacks to the original TV show or other incarnations of the Hulk at this point. Yeah, and most of those don't work for me either, but I think the villain was pretty good in the film. I mean, he's not utilized all that much, but he's menacing when he's on screen. But yeah, it's a weak entry in the MCU at this point. Edward Norton, I don't know. I like Edward Norton a lot as an actor. I don't think he did a whole lot in this role because that's the way they wanted it played. I don't know if I like him better than Mark Ruffalo. I'm not a big fan of Mark Ruffalo in the role either, so it's kind of a take or leave it when it comes to those two guys. One little thing I would point out about Hulk, the Hulk movie that I really liked was the Hulk's motivation, or Banner's motivation that sometimes gets him over the edge to turn into the Hulk. Almost every time in the film, it's because of his love for Betsy Ross or whatever the fuck her name is. And it just worked for me that, like, in certain moments he's trying to control his anger, but he can't because he sees that she's in danger. And it happens enough times in the film where I just think that they made that a nice theme that really worked. That doesn't even exist in some of the other ones we've already gone over.
I'm right there with you. The Incredible Hulk, number 19 for me. I think when it comes to Edward Norton's performance as opposed to Mark Ruffalo, is that Mark Ruffalo got to be the fun Hulk. Edward Norton is stuck in that, yeah, we know it's not an origin one because they tried to flip through that in the beginning, but it's stuck in that, hey, I'm running from the military, and that's all he does. The end, you get a little glimpse of, okay, now the military needs him, so he gets to go and fight a big baddie. I think moving forward, if they made Hulk movies now, they wouldn't have to be so sort of boring and on a sour note because he wouldn't be running from the government. Everybody knows who he is. It's unfair because you're right. The MCU did not know what was going to happen yet. But I do feel if Edward Norton, if you put him in the first Avengers movie, it might have been even a cooler Hulk, but we'll never know. But yeah, for all the reasons that you said, and just the fact that it was just too early on to not be able to get its grasp on. It feels like the dark horse of the MCU because it has such a different tone. And that's because it was the second one simultaneously being made with Iron Man, and they had no fucking clue what they had yet. So 19, Incredible Hulk.
Okay, at number 18, it's time for me to pick on the little guy. I'm going to go with Ant-Man right here. Ant-Man is one of the weaker entries for me, and I feel like it's a weaker entry once the MCU was up and running with its tone and its template, but this one just still feels like it's just not as interesting as all of the other entries. Other than an introduction to Paul Rudd as a great character of Ant-Man, you know, he's fun to watch. He's
just
not
perfect
a lot
in the MCU.
Yeah, he's a great addition to the MCU, but I just don't find the films around that are built around him to be all that interesting. I think they could have done a lot more with the heist idea, that this one was supposed to feel a little different because it was going to be kind of like a heist movie, and that element is in the film but not utilized as well as I would like to see. Maybe the heist needed to be a bit more exciting, a little bit more elaborate. It didn't work for me as a standalone film. He's a fun character within the MCU, but his films don't really do it for me. The villain sucked, I thought. So Ben, where are you at with number 18?
For number 18 for me, this is a tough one because it came out 6 years ago, and I've just flip-flopped on it so many times. But when I walked out of the theater, I was just like, there's something not right about this movie, and that's Iron Man 3. What I think the problem with me, and I know there's a lot of people that really like it, it's one of the more divisive ones because of certain decisions in it. And a lot of people don't think this, but I think Shane Black has been one of the most interesting directors to come into the MCU. A lot of people forget about him when they go, oh, Taika Waititi, and we've got these guys and these guys. Shane Black will never completely fall in line with what you want him to do because he's got his own way of doing things. And I'm surprised that you've heard about things with Edgar Wright and stuff like that fall out. Maybe Shane Black stayed within those lines just enough, but his decision-making is what made me not like this movie that much. I love his fun tone. I love the performances he gets out of the actors. I don't like the decision to keep Stark out of the Iron Man suit for 45 minutes in the middle of the movie. Obviously, the Mandarin thing was pretty stupid because it was just played for a joke. Aldrich Killian is a boring bad guy, even though I love Guy Pearce. Yeah, it just didn't work for me. Like, he had to throw in his Christmas thing, which really didn't make any sense because the movie came out in like May or something. It just doesn't feel right. And then he had to throw in his obligatory child to try to have a relationship with. And that one did kind of work because Tony Stark basically just told him to fuck off instead of actually develop a friendship with him. I appreciate things about it, and I appreciate Shane Black's input and the way he decided to do it. I feel it's more script things because I do love a lot of like the Lethal Weapon vibe it has towards the end. I thought Don Cheadle was utilized a little bit better in this one than he was maybe even in the second one. He did kind of feel fun in the third one.
Yeah.
But it just, I don't know. And there's some great action scenes in the third one, but I don't know. There's things about it that just placed it here at 18 for me.
We have Marvel's newest entry, Captain Marvel. Pretty much all the movies that I have ranked between 14 and 21 are kind of interchangeable for me. They're all about the same level for me.
I'm pretty much on that.
So yeah, and we're only at 17, so there's a few more that fit into this category. But yeah, Captain Marvel for me was entertaining. But this was the first time that I think they botched the lead character. Every time they've introduced a new main superhero, they've always been interesting. Even if I wasn't the biggest fan of Ant-Man's movie, I like the Ant-Man character. I love Paul Rudd in the role. Brie Larson just did nothing as Captain Marvel. We didn't learn enough about her to really care about her or be interested in her. Her powers are just all over the place and too strong. There was some fun to be had in the movie with her character, but very little, and that's a big problem. If you're setting up this, as an origin story for any new character, they've made it work 20-something times over. I'm not sure what they got wrong here. But all the ancillary characters are so much fun that this movie's still very entertaining. There's a lot of fun to be had in the movie. The nostalgia that it has with the 90s is fun to have. But
Don't
overall,
forget about Dick Clark.
Dick Clark?
Clark Gregg, sorry.
Yeah. Got to fit that dick in where you can, right? I don't have anything else to say.
I threw you off on that one.
I don't have anything else to add. We got the dick in there, and that was the important part. So yeah, Captain Marvel, it's just another one in the kind of bottom ranks of the MCU. It's fun, but very forgettable as well.
Number 17 for me is Captain America, The First Avenger. I do like this movie, and I think that Joe Johnston was a great pick as director for this, based on The Rocketeer. It has that swashbuckling 1930s fun adventure flick vibe. It has a lot of that. Problem with this movie is when you look at it in retrospect and think about what I just watched, it feels like one giant montage. And that's because there's lots and lots of montages in it. If you're going to do an origin story of a character that's going to be, roughly a 2-hour movie, let us see those events unfold as they should instead of zipping past certain elements. A lot to be liked about this movie. The end was a big mess. Red Skull was pretty much wasted, even though he looked really cool. Bucky Barnes wasn't established enough because a lot of people, when they got to Winter Soldier, said, "Who the fuck is this guy? What is this reveal twist?" I don't even remember that guy from that last movie. But I thought Chris Evans just was excellent in The First Avenger, playing the scrawny little guy to learning about being a bigger guy that all these chicks want. There's a lot to like about The First Avenger, but at the end it's really hokey and sometimes not really in a good way, because that was still at the beginning of the MCU in a sense too, before the Avengers movie came out, so a lot of the jokes fall flat. Tommy Lee Jones is so miscast in this movie. There's this really strange scene where he's interrogating Toby Jones, and he's just eating a steak for 3-4 minutes. It's just I've heard other reviewers mention that scene, but it's just weird. I don't know. So there's a lot of tonal issues with the movie and a lot of pacing issues with the movie. So that's where I set number 17, The First Avenger for me.
Thor: The Dark World. I have a soft spot in my heart for this movie, apparently, because I hear a lot of people put this at the very bottom of their lists as well. I think this has the best action of any Thor movie, in my opinion. There's at least 2 or 3 really strong action scenes in this movie, especially the breaking out of jail and the attack of the Dark Elves on Asgard.
Yeah, that was good.
The score in that scene, the special effects in that scene, the tech on display, the various ships and weaponry that's being used in that scene really worked for me. Some of the most exciting stuff. Honestly, I think it's one of the better action scenes in almost all of the MCU. That particular scene in the middle of Thor: Dark World. I think the tone works. It as the title says, The Dark World. I think there's a darker tone to this film that works for me. Thor is still an uninteresting character. Everything that you pointed out about how they shoehorn Natalie Portman's character into this movie doesn't really work. The plot, doesn't really matter. It's doesn't have a huge effect on the MCU overall. I don't know. There's fun to be had in the movie. In my opinion, I really like Loki in the movie. I like some of the twists and turns that his character takes. I actually really like the Queen dying. I mean, it wasn't necessarily an emotional scene for me, but I think her funeral is handled really well. I think that's a beautiful scene. I think the score is used really well throughout that scene and the action scene that precedes it. The sound design in that scene, I'm really impressed by that scene above a lot of these other entries that I've already gone over that have very little memorable moments, in my opinion. So that's a big part of why I think Thor The Dark World works out for me.
Going number 16 for me, I'm going cosmic female with Captain Marvel. It could have gone a little bit lower because I'm just so with you. The way they're writing Captain Marvel and the way Brie Larson is playing it, it's just pretentious and pompous and I don't know. There's something just off-putting about how she's been making her like press rounds and stuff with this little kind of look in her eye that she's better than everybody else. I'm wondering if she's playing her character at all these press conferences, but she just seems like she's the best thing in the world and she can do no wrong and she's untouchable, and it's just kind of annoying, and it comes through in that performance too. That performance is just her basically like, fuck you, like I just touch you and blow you up like I'm Mrs. Manhattan, you know? And it's just obnoxious because that diffuses all the tension for me that there's going to be any hard thing for her to do in that. But then again, I like Samuel L. Jackson a ton in this. It's so fun to see him as young McTeer. I mean, I've talked about all this in the review that you should check out just a couple weeks ago. So there's lots of great things about Captain Marvel. I just feel like for the people that directed Half Nelson, which was a long time ago, but it just feels like there was no emotional weight to this movie, or there was nothing. I don't know, I just didn't have anything to root for, except I couldn't wait to see how Nick Fury lost his eye, and boy, was that dumb.
All right, that brings us to number 15, where we have another sighting of the Ant-Man, but this time with the Wasp, which I liked the sequel a little better. I think what I've come to realize with something like Thor: The Dark World and Ant-Man and the Wasp, I like the sequel a little bit better. If I didn't really enjoy the original, at least now I'm a little bit more invested in the character come the sequel. And so I think that's why I like the sequel to those films a little bit better than their originals. I think the action's a little better. The villain is no better, really, in Ant-Man and the Wasp than the original film's villain. It still has those problems. But the humor, I think, works a little better. I think the screenplay works a little better. I love the elements of the Ant-Man character being on house arrest and always trying to get back to the home and stuff like that. There's some great stuff in the screenplay, and they don't really try to play up the heist element the way that the first one did, so it wasn't as much of a letdown, because I think that original film, I was expecting them to have this different element than we had seen in the MCU, and it didn't really play out the way I was expecting. It's got great special effects when it needs to. The Ant-Man character is fun. The Wasp character stands out and is a lot of fun in this one, but still really not on board or falling in love with any of the other side characters that have been introduced in the Ant-Man universe at this point. So at number 15, Ant-Man and the Wasp for me.
Okay, and coming in at number 15 for me is the original Thor. Kenneth Branagh directed this movie, again, when the MCU wasn't exactly sure what it was doing, but it was starting to come together and shape this super team. And I like the backstory of Thor. I like the progression of the character, because, again, he's still stale and boring and stoic in this movie, but at least he has this kind of arc from beginning to end, and they sort of changed the lore of the Thor character as being someone that's been implanted on Earth and is, it's kind of like a Clark Kent character who also can turn into Thor. He's got this name, but I can't remember, where he just blends in with society because
Donald Blake, I believe.
Something like that. And because Chris Hemsworth as Thor would totally blend into society if you put a pair of glasses on him. But so I like that he's banished and that he's a little douchebag, and I love his little bad attitude at the beginning, and I love what he has to come to terms with and realize in order to get the hammer back. I like that stuff a lot, even though your big main climax of the movie is just this crappy tiny little desert town. I don't even know towns like that exist anymore. It's just this tiny little desert town, and there's just one special effect of the destroyer or whatever, and it's not even all that impressive. It's more just the weight that comes with that scene of you getting the little goosebumps because he turned into Thor. Where is your Superman moment like that, where it's now I know what I'm supposed to do and who I'm supposed to be. Rah, and go and do it. So I like that kind of stuff about it, but I agree it's so cheap and there's hardly anything going on for the entire movie except Thor talking to Natalie Portman and telling her about the 9 realms, and her going, golly, that's amazing. And I like the way it wrapped up. I like how Coulson's presence in it it's probably his biggest presence in any of these movies, except for the Avengers. It's not Nick Fury befriending this guy, it's Coulson's, and them coming to terms at the end and saying, okay, we're now allies. So yeah, I like Thor. I like the original Thor, but it lands at 15 for me. Not super high, but it's got some things about it. It's got heart to it.
Iron Man 3, as you've already pointed out. Shane Black was an interesting choice, I guess based on his relationship with Robert Downey Jr. That's probably how that came to be. And it worked for me in terms of the writing of the screenplay. I think the humor is really funny. I like the way that he directs certain characters in the film. Certain actors' performances come through really well in this movie. But it's also kind of a forgettable entry in terms of just... I don't get the ending with Iron Man giving up all of his suits, and then they just never touch on that again as the films go forward. So it seemed like it was trying. I don't know why. If Kevin Feige and the people behind the MCU had a grand plan, it seems like that's one film that, unless it was Shane Black wanting to have a hand in the script and have certain things happen, it doesn't really add up to where the direction of the MCU
seemed like
was
Rian
trying
Johnson
to go.
did.
Yeah, it's almost like a Rian Johnson. Which I think you pointed out.
It's like, fuck you, I'm going to derail your franchise. Have fun explaining that.
Yeah, I actually like the Mandarin twist. I don't know the comic books. I didn't know what to expect. It wasn't throwing me for a loop that it was done as a joke. It worked for me in the context of the film, and I've always seen it as what I got out of the film. I had no knowledge of that character outside of that movie, so it didn't really upset me. I enjoyed it. I think Ben Kingsley was excellent in the small screen time that he has in that role. I agree with you that the Guy Pearce's villain is pretty terrible and schmarmy and whatever. It's what we expect, but you still have Tony Stark in the movie, and that's all it needs to keep it kind of elevated for me on this list and keep it entertaining. Tony Stark is just such a great character, has such a great last name, and and he was just really entertaining and funny in that one. I like the relationship with the little kid and stuff. I like what's going on with Pepper Potts in the movie. So yeah, Iron Man 3, certainly not the strongest Iron Man movie, that's for sure, but I like it a hell of a lot more than Iron Man 2, and it's still a fun ride in the MCU.
Okay, coming in at number 14 for me, this is going to be an ultra mega controversial one, and that's Black Panther. Yeah, it is low. It's low because I didn't really connect with it all that much. It was fine. Best Picture nominee, it was not, in my opinion, but that's cool that they did that. Whatever. I thought that our protagonist was underused in his own movie, and actually every other character around him was so much more interesting and important to the story. He's constantly having to be picked up, and I know that that's like, well, that's his journey. Fuck you! Like, give me a little bit more than that. And it's got one of the worst endings in the MCU, for sure. Giant CGI, awful-looking rhinos. And no one really ever makes mention of the fact that it's basically... these two opposing people fighting are all on the same side at the beginning of the movie and are on the same side at the end of the movie, yet they're killing each other in this battle, and no one ever really makes mention of that again. It's like when you see Wakanda picked up in Avengers Infinity War, it's like no one makes mention of they just had a bloody civil war where all these people were murdered for one guy from America's ideologies who just comes in. And the paper-thin idea of if you just kill the fucking king, then you automatically have the fate of Wakanda in your hands. So no one until this point has ever been a bad guy who killed a good king and steered Wakanda in an evil direction until now. I refuse to believe that, especially during the actual Black Panther era. There's probably people fucking flooding that kingdom to try to get in and fight the king. There's so many coincidences in this movie that it's hard to get behind. I'm only talking about bad things because honestly, the stuff that's good is just like the set design. I don't know. Michael B. Jordan brings this movie way up for me because he's so good and he's one of my favorite MCU villains. That's the best thing I'll say about it. It has one of the best Marvel villains to me in Killmonger. I thought he was fucking awesome. I was almost wanting him to win in the end just because I liked and understood him so much more than T'Challa or whatever his name is, you know? Is that his name?
T'Challa.
T'Challa, yeah. We called him Tapatio once. That was insensitive.
All right, well, I can agree with everything you just said because coming in at number 13 for me is Black Panther. I think the one addition that I would make that actually one of my favorite characters in the whole movie and my favorite villain in the film is actually Andy Serkis' character.
Yeah. Forgot to mention him. He's awesome.
I'm not as big of a fan of Michael B. Jordan's character. The set design, production design, the score, there's elements of the filmmaking and craft in this film that really stand out that keep it as elevated as it is on my list. But I have to agree with all your points about the screenplay, the script, the terrible ending, the underused hero in the film to some degree. There's a lot of flaws with this movie, so it just barely makes it out of the realm of like interchangeably bad MCU movies because I think there's some production value to this movie that elevates it a little bit. I really like the tech, the suits, and some of the technology that Wakanda displays. But Wakanda is another one of those places like Asgard that I think on its first go-round, it's not totally realized. I'm hoping that they flesh this out as we see more of it in the MCU. So, yeah, there's fun to be had with Black Panther, but it falls kind of right in the middle range for me on the MCU.
Okay, and number 13 for me is itty bitty little Ant-Man. And that's Ant-Man 1, because I like you, I like the sequel a little bit better. I think Ant-Man was, it was really nice to see how it came together. I know that there was a little bit of a issue with Edgar Wright. I'm personally glad that didn't happen because from what I understand it wouldn't have fit anywhere in with the MCU, and I like that it has itty bitty ties in there, and I love that Hank Pym is on fucking screen, and it's so cool to see him on screen played by Michael Douglas. We didn't get the young Hank Pym, but it's so cool to get the old Hank Pym. And I always found Scott Lang to be a much more fun Inner Thoughts character in the comics, so it's cool to see Scott Lang come in using his burglary skills and getting the Ant-Man suit. I love all that stuff. And I found in this one, Evangeline Lilly was a little underused, and they didn't quite know what to do with her as far as personality goes. I'll talk about how that changes later on, but Paul Rudd is just so fucking perfect as Scott Lang. One of the best castings in the MCU. He's just so perfect as this character because the movies are using him appropriately. His movies are very standalone, and they don't have a whole lot to do with the other ones on the surface, and that's good. He gets his own little side adventures. I agree with you. There was a lot of talk about how this movie was going to be this big heist movie, and I don't really think it was. Like, it had a couple small elements, but it wasn't as crafty as I think people were building it up to be. And the villain is so laughably stupid. Yellow Jacket. I love Corey Stoll. He's great. I think he knew he was in a stupid part, too. He just kind of had this kind of look on his face, like he's just reading these lines. And the whole Hydra story thing didn't quite make sense to me, why there's still an underground Hydra buying weapons. And I love the scene that the propaganda video that they make of the Yellow Jackets, like, who made that? Who made that video? I mean, graphics designers, all kinds of people had to make this thing. There's just little things that don't quite make sense. The story is a little unfocused, and then I heard they had to go back and do a reshoot for this very shoehorned in Avenger scene, which I quite enjoyed, though, with him and the Falcon. I thought that was a great scene, but it does feel a little out of place for this little device that you never really know what the fuck it is. I guess it's something that shuts power down. I don't know. Some of the miniaturizing of things, it's fun and it's visually cool, but it gets really ridiculous as far as like, how does that work? Like, does everything in the house shrink? Like, yeah. But you're not supposed to care about that stuff. Ant-Man's still a lot of fun, but it has its issues. But because of the casting and just the fun element to it, it got a number 13 spot for me.
Moving from one little creepy crawly bug to another. We're moving on to number 12 for me, Spider-Man Homecoming. So I think we did a full review on Spider-Man. I'm pretty sure in Spider-Man Homecoming review, I pointed out how much I was annoyed by, what's his name, who plays Spider-Man now?
Tom Holland.
Tom Holland. Yeah, I was pretty annoyed with him in that film. He's grown on me in Infinity War. They toned down his annoying banter. But it really hampers my enjoyment of that first film. I think they do a great job of inserting this character into the MCU mid-stride or whatever. That film works really well with the Tony Stark internship and stuff, and the way Aunt May is handled in the film. I think there's some really smart choices in the film to get this character in the MCU. But the film overall was kind of bland for me. I do like the playful tone that it's kind of a teen oriented movie, that it has like the callbacks to 80s teen movies at times and stuff. Some of that stuff is fun, but also kind of forgettable for me. It's just a middle of the road entry for me, but it works well. The Spider-Man character is growing on me to some degree. Obviously, Tobey Maguire and Sam Raimi films are going to be hard to surpass, in my opinion, of just standalone Spider-Man movies. But I do like this character now introduced into the MCU.
Number 12 for me, and it shows you right where this franchise for me is in the overall scheme of things. That's Ant-Man and the Wasp. Both of them are pretty much directly in the middle of this thing. This one was a little even funner. I love all the stuff that you talked about, his house arrest and how he's got the ankle bracelet on. I love it that it's just a on-the-road, non-stop chase movie that only, like the first one, I think it spans a very long period of time with his training and blah, blah, blah. This one, it seems to be, it's about a day, and it's all in one day. Big adventure. And I don't agree with what people have said about the villain, because this movie is not about the villain. This movie is about obstacles. And people are like, well, I thought the ghost was boring. Oh, I thought Walton Goggins was shoehorned in there. Walton Goggins is not the villain. He's an obstacle. They're trying to get to a goal in this movie, and those are just things in the way. Sure, the ghost was advertised as this villain, but it's hardly a villain, and it steps aside so many times in the movie. It's all about getting Janet Von Dien back. That's more important than anything else. So I don't have a problem with the villains, because that's not the purpose of the story, and that's what makes this one stand out a little bit, is that it's an adventure to get to its particular goal, not to defeat a villain who's trying to take over the world. The Ghost is a very sympathetic character who's just trying to stop feeling pain, for God's sake. That's all she wants, and she's gorgeous. I said this in my Ant-Man review. She's hysterically, ridiculously gorgeous. Lawrence Fishburne jumped off the Titanic of the Man of Steel franchise and jumped on over to the MCU. Who would have thought he'd be like, you know what, Superman or Ant-Man? Ant-Man sounds like the more lucrative franchise here. And Evangeline Lilly steals it from me. The Wasp is a character that should be utilized more. I really hope they don't end the Ant-Man thing and move on, because she would be great in the Avengers with the other Avengers. She's a lot more skilled and way more effective as a superhero than Ant-Man is, and the movie even shows that. Paul Rudd is more of a comic relief character, letting her handle most of the action, and it fits in that movie. She's so good as a superhero, and they finally found her personality and what's at stake to her in Ant-Man and the Wasp. So I really enjoy Ant-Man and the Wasp, so that's number 12 for me.
Bringing us to a number we love here at Cinema Gulp. That's 11.
Put it up to 11.
11, exactly.
So coming in at number 11 for me, I still kind of have this mid-section of films for me, is Captain America Civil War. This movie's actually really well made. It looks good. The action scenes work pretty well, but they're pulling their punches. That is the big problem with this movie, is that the stakes are just obviously not realistic stakes where these people are going to kill each other. So I have some big issues with this movie just being exciting from that standpoint, because the action scenes, even though they're shot well and choreographed well, they just don't have the impact that they should. The humor is drained in this movie to some degree. Certain characters that you rely on to be funny, like Tony Stark, aren't given that opportunity in this film, and it comes through. It kind of hampers my enjoyment of the characters that you've come to love in this particular film. And then they're back to being funny in the next movie. So it just seems like something that's forced to tell this story. I imagine this story is important to comic book lovers and what it means to... I do think there's elements that come out of this story that drive a continuation of the MCU from that point forward, and is still working for me to some degree. Certain relationships that were put on the rocks in this movie, certain relationships that developed further in this movie. So I think it's kind of an important part of the MCU's storytelling, but I think there's problems with this story as a whole. But it's a well-crafted movie and has some entertaining action scenes, obviously. The big scene at the airport is a standout in all of the MCU. It's one of the best action scenes, but because they're pulling their punches in that scene, very specifically, it doesn't elevate it into the top tier.
Yeah, I agree with you, because that's right where I'm at with 11. Is Captain America Civil War. the Civil War storyline works in the comics because it's so much more expansive. There's so many more characters. When you have, however many characters they've built up in the MCU, minus Hulk, minus Thor, and you're only dealing with a few characters and a couple of new ones they kind of bring in out of nowhere, like Spider-Man and even Ant-Man, it doesn't feel like a big civil war the way the comic book portrays it, where you have X-Men fighting, you have Fantastic Four fighting. It's
one
so
battle,
big.
it's not a war.
Yeah, there's so much more going on in the comics, and I can't fault the movies for that. The movies are doing their own thing, and they're doing a great job at it. My biggest problem with Civil War is the whole idea of the Sokovia Accords to begin with, because you have Scarlet Witch doing her best to save an entire city of people from a nuclear bomb, but fails to get it high enough in the air, and it kills 15 people in a building. Now all of a sudden,
well, they were Wakandans.
Well, now all of a sudden, there's a target on the Avengers' backs, and everything has to change. But what would you have done in all these cases? There's a scene where, like, Thunderbolt Ross is going, Sokovia, New York, Washington. It's like, yeah, they went and they saved all these things.
Yeah.
They didn't start those things. I don't understand. Oh, the collateral damage. Like, yeah, but should we have just let the aliens come in? Should we have just let the terrorist bomb go off? Tony Stark and and Steve Rogers, they have a conversation in Age of Ultron, which is eons better than any conversation they have in Civil War, where they're cutting wood and they're talking about their ideologies, because that was kind of like the match that lit everything for it.
Yeah.
They never just sit down, and they have a tiny conversation that just goes nowhere, where Tony Stark's like, give me a break, and then they stop talking. It's like, a conversation would stop all of this. And Steve Rogers does not act like Steve Rogers in this movie. Tony Stark does not act like Tony Stark in this movie. If anything, they should be on the opposite sides. Yeah. And I don't know about you, but I don't think Winter Soldier is an interesting enough of a character to have 2 movies dedicated to him, where he's on. I don't care, and I was so tired by the end of that movie of Captain America saving this guy over and over and over. Why doesn't that guy just go, Steve, let me go? Like, my life is a fucking mess. There's no reason to save me. Instead, Bucky just lets all this shit happen for him, instead of just saying, I'm not worth all this shit. Top 10.
Top 10 comes with the first entry on the list of an Avengers, a true Avengers film. Avengers Age of Ultron at number 10 for me. I think this is still a really fun movie. I think the humor comes through. There's that great party scene, is really funny.
That's awesome.
They're all trying to pick up Thor's hammer and stuff. That introduction of the Ultron character is handled so creepy in that scene when the robots come out and it's all falling apart, and the voice and everything. James Spader does such a good job voicing the Ultron character. So there are elements of this movie that I really enjoy, some great action set pieces in the movie. But it's the weakest of the Avengers films, where you have everybody together. It does seem like Joss Whedon was being pulled in too many different directions at that point by the studio, and it really shows in the film. There's an element of this film that also feels like it's spinning its wheels that I feel Civil War has. They come in the middle of all this stuff. It's a really entertaining movie. You've got all the characters you love that are so much more fleshed out at this point, and really, if you're gonna love them, you're gonna love them, or if you're not, they're never gonna win you over. I find it a very entertaining movie, a rewatchable movie, but the weakest in the actual overall Avengers timeline. So at number 10.
Coming in at number 10 for me, this is where things start to get strange. Doctor Strange, one of the movies I was anticipating a lot to eventually get made. I love that they got, I think his name is Scott Derrickson, who is a horror director. Didn't really bring too much of those elements into this movie, but he made it so... still possibly the coolest looking movie out of all of them. I love the look of this movie. I love the tone of this movie. Sometimes going with the obvious casting choice is the best way to go. And now that could I have seen Ethan Hawke in this role? Maybe. But now that we have Benedict Cumberbatch, he is so perfect. Benedict Wong is awesome in this. The cape is so great in this movie. I rewatched this movie recently and I just love it. I love Doctor Strange. I do feel, when a lot of people talk about bad villains, one of the things we also talk about is bad or otherwise unnecessary love interests. And I think this one is probably right next to Natalie Portman, as in we don't need her. Rachel McAdams is fine in the movie. She just literally has nothing to do with the story. It shouldn't be one of those movies that you find so entertaining because it's mystic arts and it's... it's a lot of exposition and stuff, but it's exposition that works because it's told through this really great kaleidoscopy kind of filter. it's some of the camera tricks and some of the CGI tricks that they use in this movie to kind of bring the story out, so we as viewers know what it feels like to get into what's going on with the character and what he's visualizing. All the same kind of stuff that you see in the comic books. I just thought Derrickson did a great job. I thought he was a good choice to direct it. So Doctor Strange is starting my top 10 at number 10.
Take everything Ben just said about Doctor Strange and apply that to my number 9 film, which is Doctor Strange. Yeah, I agree with everything you said. It is the most awesome visual feast of the MCU, I've got to say. I mean, those special effects are amazing and awesome. I'm actually really looking forward to a Doctor Strange 2 to see a bit more of that, to see Derrickson get another opportunity to wow us with some of that.
Wish it wasn't so far away.
This deep into the MCU, still getting an origin story that entertains you and seems somewhat fresh, handled slightly different than every other one. Doctor Strange is such a great addition to the MCU in terms of his character and being played by Benedict Cumberbatch. And so I loved Doctor Strange in Infinity War. I mean, he was one of the standouts in that movie. So he's just a character that seems to really be growing on me from film to film. And I think it'd be great to see him back in his original director's hands and have a really great sequel. It was really great to have Doctor Strange come out and be such a great film to introduce all these new elements and make them work within what we've already seen in the MCU.
Number 9 for me is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I still like it a lot. I still love the franchise of Guardians of the Galaxy. I remember we reviewed this movie, check that out, a couple years ago when it came out, and I had said, I don't really care if they ever mix them in with the rest of the MCU, because I like this franchise for what it is. I like the new characters they were adding. They fit within that group of misfits. You learn a lot more about Peter Quill. This was really sort of Peter Quill's. The first one was more of an origin story for the group. The second one feels like it was a Peter Quill story, learning everything that you needed to know and finding out vital information about who he is. And Kurt Russell makes everything he's in better. He was awesome in it. Perfect fit for him to play Star-Lord's dad. I loved it. Michael Rooker got so much more to do. He was great. All the original 5 were always great. They split them up a little bit in this movie, which made it more fun. They had their own little adventures to go on. It's such a solid part 2. It's not as good as the first one to me. I didn't like the soundtrack nearly as much. That was my biggest knock on it when we did the review. It's just not as inspired as the first one, but I get it. That's tough to do. It's Volume 2, after all. That's where they put the B-sides and the shitty ones.
The First Avenger, Captain America: The First Avenger, coming in at number 8 for me.
We are way on the opposite side.
Yeah, that's the one that stands out from the list so far that I have much higher than you.
Yeah.
I still really like this movie. I mean, I haven't seen it in a long time. Maybe with all these new entries, maybe I would agree that it should drop down a little bit. But what I always remember about it is we really are meeting the heart of the MCU in Steve Rogers' character. I've just been impressed with the evolution of Steve Rogers and Captain America through these films to keep me interested in what seems like one of the most bland superheroes on paper, I guess. I love the period piece setting. It works really well for me. As you point out, Joe Johnston brings a lot in terms of his Rocketeer elements that he made that film so great, and it really stands out in this movie too. I love the kind of Indiana Jones influenced elements in this film. The villain is great in my opinion. I think one of the best villains overall is Red Skull, and Hugo Weaving playing him. So there's just a lot that worked for me in this movie. I think the progression of seeing Chris Evans playing Steve Rogers before he has the serum, it's all very believable. I think the effects are very believable. The character really comes through in those early stages before he's the super soldier. So it's a very distinct film in the MCU, in my opinion, of the period piece being a great origin story for one of the characters that has evolved to be one of my favorites. And I think it's got 2 of the best action scenes in the MCU as well. I love the initial action scene of Steve Rogers chasing down the assassin, and the way that plays into the evolution of his character just all in that scene, him using the door as a shield and things like that, and just seeing him not even understanding his powers, but learning them in that first scene.
He runs through that building.
I think that scene is just handled really well, and then the final action scene I think is really handled well. The zero gravity elements of them flying around in that ship and being tossed around. I think it's kind of a short scene, but I find it very exciting within the MCU's action.
So my number 8 is Avengers: Age of Ultron. It's a fun movie. I agree with you. It's the weakest of the Avengers. That's not to say it's a bad thing. I love a lot of the stuff they do with this movie. I love that it shows the team working together on separate adventure at the beginning that isn't necessarily the adventure they go on later, even though it's not really explained how they all got back together again for it. It's just supposed to be kind of suggested that they've been back together working on things for a little bit here and there. The biggest problem with this movie is it kind of repeats the entire third act of the first one, which is just a big giant fight with nameless, faceless robots instead of aliens. Plays out in a lot of similar beats, but you do see a lot of superheroes saving people, which is kind of cool. Yeah, there's a lot. You were talking about action scenes. I love the middle action scene in this one, where it's just Black Widow, Cap, and Hawkeye that go out to China on that mission to get like the cradle thing, and they have this really great Captain America has a really great fight with Ultron on all these cars, and you got Hawkeye flying through the air and the Quinjet, and then Black Widow trying to keep up with them on the motorcycle. It's such an awesome action scene. Like, it's got 5 or 6 different things going on that are just trying to set up other things. But hello, that's what the big team-up movies are all about. They're showing all that stuff that you're going to see in future movies. Maybe this one did a little bit too much, so that's why it's the least of the Avengers movies so far. But there's so much fun to be had with this movie. I didn't mind it that it's long. This movie doesn't get enough credit. I think people think it was like the first misstep, and I don't really find it a misstep. I thought it was a natural progression. It's the first time you've ever had a sequel to a team-up movie that was in itself a sequel to all these other movies, and then to do that again, to me, it just made sense. I don't know what people were expecting, but Age of Ultron.
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I love the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Both of them are excellent. I think that it's one of the best casts in the MCU. Just all the characters that have been introduced over the 2 Guardians of the Galaxy movies, they work so well together. The chemistry on screen works so well. I still find it to be right up there with the first film. It's just super entertaining. I don't think James Gunn is the strongest action director. I've had that issue with most of the MCU. I think that there's issues with some of the directing of the action. It's exciting, it's entertaining, but it's not as kinetic or visceral as I want to get my blood going in every film. But it's certainly serviceable in this movie. It's entertaining. I really love me some Guardians of the Galaxy. Volume 2 is great. We'll see where Volume 1 lands on the list.
Okay, my number 7. This is one I have far ahead of yours, and that is Spider-Man: Homecoming. This is John Hughes without the sexist, racist dialogue, and this is really a story about Peter Parker figuring out where Spider-Man's worth comes in this new MCU. Where is he best placed as a superhero? And I like that you have Tony Stark coming in as sort of a mentor, and I like the decision to go with someone, a villain who's very grounded and very sympathetic, like Michael Keaton as the Vulture, because he's just a working man who was screwed over by the Avengers, and he's basically what you love about the original foundation of Spider-Man villains is they're just robbers. I love that they don't kill off the villain. I love it. I love that they don't kill off the villain, because he doesn't even necessarily deserve to die. Like, he's the only people he's really killed in the movie are like other thugs or whatever. As far as how Spider-Man should be treated in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I don't see how they possibly could have made it better. And Tom Holland, to me, is everything Spider-Man is supposed to be. Love Spider-Man: Homecoming. It's so good to see them doing Spider-Man in the MCU, and I can't wait for the next one. So that's it for me.
So that brings us to number 6 for me, which is the original Guardians of the Galaxy. For all the reasons that I loved Part 2, I love Part 1 just that much more. Star-Lord, such an excellent character. Probably my second favorite in all of the MCU behind Tony Stark. One of the funniest casts in the MCU. The chemistry plays off of each other so well. Yeah, it's just a really fun film. It's rewatchable, so rewatchable that anytime you pop it on, you just want to get through the whole thing and not turn it off. Star-Lord is such a fun character, maybe the second best after Tony Stark, in my opinion, in all of the MCU, in just terms of entertaining, compelling to know more about his backstory.
Coming in at number 6 for me is Guardians of the Galaxy as well. I love the charisma, I love the charm, I love the magic. This is a very rewatchable movie. This is one of those MCU movies because of the adventure and the space and the characters. It's so easy to just pop it on, go back to it. Totally made Pratt a superstar. Zoe Saldana had already kind of been coloring her body different colors in other movies, but she's excellent in these movies. I love Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1. I love the soundtrack. It's basically just a soundtrack of Dazed and Confused, but that's fine. It's a great movie.
Number 5 for me, One of the films that most people have towards the very top of their list. It's definitely one of the best in the MCU, Captain America Winter Soldier. This is the best action film of all of the MCU. Some of the best, like 3 or 4 of the best action scenes, hands down, across every single one of these 21 films we're talking about today. The best action scenes in all of the MCU are in this movie. At least probably 4 of them are in there. It's the kinetic action I'm looking for, the visceral action that I'm looking for, and that's what we get out of this one. But I just love the storytelling, the tone, that they still have some humor in the film, so it feels like an MCU film, but ramped up the tone with a darker and more serious feel to it. The political intrigue that's there in the film is a lot of fun. It's so exciting. The score is so good in that one, really gets your blood going. The Winter Soldier is handled perfectly in that film. Like, it has nothing to say. We don't need to know anything about him. He's just a badass who you're afraid to see show up and kill somebody. Gotta love me some Winter Soldier at number 5.
Good one. Coming in at number 5 for me is the original Marvel's Avengers. Really fun movie. This was that first holy shit moment in the MCU that they actually did it. The ending's great. It's just poppy cinematic fun thrown in your face, watching all these people fight. Some of the cool camera work where it's jumping from one superhero to the next. Still didn't feel like there's any stakes. The villains were nothing, didn't care. But this movie, I say it a lot, the villains aren't the purpose. And yeah, they weren't the point of this movie. The point of this movie is to get the team together, establish that we're going to have a Thanos-ish sort of looming in the background for however many more years. So it did its job. It was great. Joss Whedon crushed it. I know he was just jizzing himself every day on set because he's a big comic book writer, comic book fan. And it shows in this movie. It's very comic booky. From the outfits, which were ridiculous, like keeping Captain America in the most goofy costume he's had in any of these movies was brilliant. It made sense because everyone just popped in this movie so well. First Avengers comes in at number 5 for me.
Coming in at number 4 is the third Avengers Infinity War for me. It truly is the culmination of all of these stories actually working together and coming together, where there's plot lines that you could care less about that seemed uninteresting leading into that film, but within the context of that movie, it works. Every relationship that's on display, I'm interested in, I'm invested in. I love the way that it groups certain people together. They do a great job of having these various little adventures for the groups to go on and keep us interested. The humor is still there. It's one of the funniest MCU movies, I think. It has everything. It's got action, it's got humor, it's got drama. It has everything that makes it a Marvel product, but it excels. Infinity War coming at number 4 for me.
Number 4 for me is the original Iron Man. This is the movie that started it all. This is the movie that had constant production troubles. No one could come up with a script that worked. So it was really nice to see how this came together. I've heard stories about people on the production crew that were sending texts out to people going, this movie's fucked. It's never going to get made. This is such a mess.
Was that Terrence Howard doing that?
Talk about rewatchability. There's not much going on in this movie except him tinkering, and that's my favorite stuff about Tony Stark is when he's tinkering. That stuff is awesome, and that's the first Jarvis, and like Jarvis is so great. Pepper Potts is not just a throwaway stupid character. She goes toe-to-toe with Tony. She really has a lot of depth in that first movie. She's not just a love interest. In fact, she's not a love interest at all. There's hints, but that's not her character she's playing. I love the opening scene of this movie, that set piece in the cave with the character who became so important in his life, who he never makes any fucking mention of again. You gotta give praise to Iron Man and Jon Favreau for sure for starting all of this. So, number 4 for me.
Moving on to number 3 for me. That's gonna bring us to Thor Ragnarok, and the introduction of Taika Waititi to the MCU. What a great voice to come to the MCU. I hope he gets another opportunity to make another movie. The use of music in some of those scenes is a lot of fun. The visuals are great. It's able to work outside of the MCU's template to a little degree, and interjecting the Taika Waititi humor in this film that's a little different than the normal MCU humor, but it totally works. All the characters he brings, the Jeff Goldblum, Taika himself playing Korg or whatever, Rachel House, all these cast of characters that he brings to this movie that ramp up the humor to a different degree than we've seen in the MCU, but it still works. And also this story informs a lot going forward. With it finally made the Thor character interesting and relevant, and everything we've seen moving forward from Thor Ragnarok has made that character so much more enjoyable on screen. And I think a lot of that comes to what Taika did with the character in Ragnarok. I love this movie so much. It's so funny. It works on a lot of different levels within the MCU and just stands out as something unique. And please give us more Taika Waititi in the future.
So coming in at number 3 for me is Avengers Infinity Space. Infinity Space.
I gotta add that to my list.
Infinity Space is the best action scene in the MCU history. If you don't know what we're talking about, just click on our YouTube page and look for the link that says Infinity Space. It's amazing. No, Infinity War is my third favorite movie. I agree with you. Kind of, the Russo brothers kind of bring back that kinetic energy in some of the action stunts, even though they've had to change the whole philosophy on how action's done, because now it's people flying, it's wizards, it's aliens, it's spaceships, as opposed to just two guys parkouring and shit. And they handled it so well. But forget about the action. The juggling act of this movie and the pacing of this movie is so good. Like, you don't have to call these guys like masterful directors and they make this beautiful art films. They took a lot of characters and a lot of situations and a lot of plots and subplots, and they really made it work, where nothing feels stretched. No scenes feel rushed. There's a couple characters who are shortchanged, but I think that's because there's this other one coming that's going to maybe give them more to do. But man, I was so impressed with how they just utilized the characters and how they would jump. You wouldn't see Tony Stark for 30 minutes, and then there'd be a scene with him, and then you wouldn't see Thor for 40 minutes, and there'd be a scene with him. When everyone's on screen, they feel like it's their movie. My biggest thing of this movie is how well it's paced. It's nearly 3 hours, and I could have kept watching this for another 2 hours. So Avengers Infinity War is my third favorite Marvel movie.
Number 2 for me is the original Avengers film. This just worked for me. You know, going through the setup with each film for the initial 3 or 4 characters, bringing all them in, and I guess getting the original 6, as you would call it, it just worked for me. That film worked on every level. I find it to be really entertaining, really funny. The chemistry of the characters finally coming together, because that's where really everyone finally meets each other, is on the boat scene. Funny, entertaining, building to an exciting conclusion in the film, bringing all these characters together for the first time in a really great way. It just works. Joss Whedon, his dialogue in that film just works so well. Him being such a fan of superheroes, it really shows. It comes through. He gives them all great superhero moments in the film. Everybody gets their time to shine. So yeah, Avengers, the first Avengers film, just is everything that you want out of the MCU's template, and done perfectly.
Thor Ragnarok is number 2 for me. It's a thrilling adventure completely, but its biggest strength to me is its ability to finally take the character of Thor and show us what an absolute fucking goofy character it really is. This movie embraces that, and everything Taika Waititi has built around the Thor character helps complement who Thor is. It's Jack Kirby illustrations at its very best, with the colors. Sakaar is like this just trash planet, but it's beautiful and it pops and it's colorful and it's funny. And all the supporting cast, like you said, Rachel House, Taika Waititi playing Korg. I just love all these characters, and Thor finally matters in his own movie, and we're following him on an adventure that is fun and exciting and has like stakes, but it's not like overly boring. It's like the stakes in Ragnarok are 10 times higher than they are in the Dark World, but it doesn't feel as dour. It feels just like a total blast of comic book thrown at you on screen. I like Thor now. It's like it's amazing that my top couple picks are ones that I never would have thought would be where they are. It's just because of one entry that changed it all for me. Thor Ragnarok is the funniest movie in the MCU. It's one of my favorite comic book movies of all time. It's so much fun. Like you said, give Waititi the keys to make more of these fucking goofy cosmic adventures.
Brings us to our number 1. My favorite of the MCU. So you could say it was all downhill right from the start, because my favorite MCU movie was Iron Man, the very first entry in the MCU. Even before there was a thing called an MCU, it was just a couple guys trying to get their career on track. Jon Favreau trying to make a name as a director, and Robert Downey Jr. trying to get off smack. And they did such a good job of that, didn't they? I fucking love Iron Man. In my opinion, it's the most rewatchable of all of the MCU. It is the only film of all of these MCU films. Jon Favreau did such a great job of directing this film. Who knew he had it in him to be able to bring this tone that has stuck with the MCU and worked so well in its favor across 20 movies that he kind of invented, I think, at least for the MCU. The balance of action, comedy, and heart in that first film. I don't think they've ever been able to quite capture that same balance. They have certain elements, they have the action and the humor without the heart.
It was the template to start it, yeah.
But I think that the heart of that character, Tony Stark, is not just the greatest character in the MCU, but he's one of the best characters in all of cinema. And Robert Downey Jr. deserves all the credit. Maybe not all the credit, because you have Jon Favreau writing the screenplay, but there was just magic in that first film that they haven't really been able to capture again, in my opinion, where it's trying to make us believe that this superhero could exist in the world that we live in. That he didn't have any special superhero powers, that he built a suit for himself, that with the tech and the technology of Stark Industries, it was believable that this suit could come to be and that a person could operate it in the way that he did. Yes, it's still a movie. You know, I don't believe it 100% that all these are real things, but there's just something about the way that first movie plays out that keeps it grounded in a way that made it make sense in the world that we live in. I love Iron Man. I've always loved Iron Man as my favorite. I don't know that any MCU movie is going to be able to beat Iron Man because it has too much baggage going into every movie at this point. And Iron Man was just fresh and interesting and just handled in a way that other superhero movies had not pulled off up to that point, in my opinion.
I knew when I saw Derek Lutz on screen for the first time that he was going to be Iron Man. Derek Lutz from Back to School. Okay, so without further ado, and obviously my favorite Marvel Cinematic Universe film is Captain America, The Winter Soldier. This movie blew me away when I saw it in the theater. I saw it a few times in the theater because I kept taking people to go see it. This was a character I was not interested in at all because I didn't really care for his first solo movie all that much, like we said. And in the Avengers, he comes off a little hokey. Man, is he really coming to his own as Captain America in this movie. Holy shit. Aside from just that opening scene of him on that whatever the fuck it's called, that cruiser ship, that's the point in the movie where they punch you in the mouth and they go, this is not the Captain America from the other two movies. Up until that point, you did not know the extent of his powers. Yeah, you saw him like throw a motorcycle and stuff, but this one they just go bam when he's knocking people off that boat, and they give him all this new kind of martial arts that you haven't really seen him use before either, and he's so fast and swift, and you're like, holy fuck, this is basically Superman who can't fly. At its core, this movie, and it starts out at the very beginning, this movie is about friendship. This movie is about Captain America meeting a new friend in Sam Wilson, and how their relationship contrasts his relationship with Bucky, where he's kind of saying goodbye to the past. Captain America's saying goodbye to the past. He's saying goodbye to Bucky, who is his friend, who is bigger than him and more cunning than him and better looking than him, going through their life together. Now he's the Bucky character, and he's taking in someone like Sam, who's going to be loyal as a dog to him forever. And it's interesting how that works out, because then you have the full circle effect where Bucky comes back into the picture as the Winter Soldier, and that reveal, there's a lot of people that didn't see that coming. There's a lot of people that didn't even realize who Bucky was. But it works so well, and there's not a single action scene in this movie that's not just heart-pounding and amazing. And that Henry Jackman score, it's very unconventional. It just uses a lot of noise and sound effects almost that seem like they just are playing in your own head if you were going through something in a crazy action scene like this. It also gives Black Widow her first ever really time to shine. She's got her own style of fighting and her own way of doing things, and they bring her into the fold with a lot of secrets. And Nick Fury at the beginning, Nick Fury having the best opportunity to do anything in these movies. He does in this one. He gets one of the coolest action scenes in all of the MCU. This is a rewatchable movie to me. It's not just the action that makes it my number one movie, though I feel it's the best action movie of the entire Marvel films. I just love caring about Captain America, and I never thought that was possible. And yeah, Captain America the Winter Soldier is totally came out of left field. Did not know what this movie was going to do to me, and it was one of my favorite movies of 2014. Love Captain America the Winter Soldier. That is my number one Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. I gotta piss.
Man, you gotta do what I did. Take care of that on set. We are reviewing Avengers Endgame. I thought this movie was pretty great. I enjoyed it. It was an enjoyable ride. It was a, I don't want to say completely satisfying ending because I do have some issues that we can talk about when we talk spoilers. But I do like that it actually gave somewhat of a finality to the MCU, at least to certain elements of it. I'm pleased that it actually finally grew some balls a little bit, but that's my issue when we get into the spoiler part of the review. MCU just hasn't really had the balls that I feel like it should have when it comes to making final decisions.
Shh, there's women in this movie. Balls and vagina. I like this movie a lot too. I think that the juggling act of Infinity War was once again transferred into this movie, where the juggling act wasn't so much with the runtime, because this one I felt it a little bit more. I felt the changing of the pacing and the acts, but what they juggled so well was the comedy scenes with the dramatic scenes. And those were the two most important things in this movie, not necessarily the action scenes, which were really not that strong, but that's fine because this was finality, like you said.
Yeah.
This was wrapping up a lot of characters. They crushed it. I don't think they could have done that any better than they did.
It's a certain feat, for sure, you know, to have this many characters, this many storylines that you're juggling and actually make them make sense in this final film. So
Yeah.
I give them a lot of credit for that, and I agree with you. I feel like this movie, it has adventures along the way, and as you kind of pointed out with Ant-Man, there are obstacles along the way. And those are fun moments in the movie, but there aren't a ton of like big set piece action scenes. There's 3 or 4 of them in there, some that are massive on a massive
There's
scale.
one big one.
Of course. But it's more about the relationships, getting those storylines to tie up.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's always humor in a Marvel movie, and they didn't let us down there. This movie was very funny when it needs to be. A lot of characters that always stand out as being comical are great in this film.
I can say right now, because of the changing of the pacing and the, some of the runtime, it will not be as rewatchable as Infinity War. I'll make that prediction right now. Though I really think both of them are excellent movies with really scripts like this from smarmy movie critic guy. Should be like, puh, stupid movie, superheroes. This is a big feat to make a script like this tight, especially with Infinity War, which might have been even a little bit tighter. But these are huge, these are very smart scripts if you really think about how hard it is to juggle so many characters. So
I would say this is going to get a 6.5 for me.
Okay, well, we echo a lot of the same things, but I'm actually going to give it an 8.25. Okay, guys, so that was our non-spoilery / boring review of Avengers Endgame. So what are we doing now, John? What are we welcoming everybody to?
Now we get to assemble the rest of the Avengers and bring them on to see what they thought of the movie. So we're going to have a happy hour special starting now.
Brie Larson has finally gotten her dream come true, starring opposite 10 or more 40-year-old white dudes in Avengers Endgame.
Happy hour! And without further ado, let's bring on our first guest. Who's our first guest?
Bringing in the first Avenger, we have Hawkeye coming in.
Woo, yeah!
Hey, Hawkeye, welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys, for having me.
All right,
You
so
were
we just
fucking
saw.
awesome in this movie, man.
Yes, we just saw you kick some ass in Avengers Endgame. What did you think?
All right, so for this one, great time in the theater. Totally enjoyed the movie. It was great to see the journey come to its conclusion, which, you know, a lot of times, most movies, most franchises, trilogies, etc., they can't stick the landing. To me, it felt like this stuck the landing.
Yeah.
And how we had, like, you know, the Infinity War beat Thanos' movie. This was now back to the Avengers. This was the Avengers movie.
Was this, we're in full spoilers here. Is there a shred of you that feels this was almost Nebula's movie? She is so crucial to this movie.
She is, yeah.
And she's got so much fucking screen time in this movie, right? Nebula,
Yeah.
the blue chick.
I think it's because it helped tie everything in, because now that we're in spoilers, because she was now on the Avengers team, she was also the bridge to the bad guys, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I've always found her a very interesting character.
Me too.
though.
Yeah,
She's like,
she's had a strong
how
arc.
tormented she is. Her backstory is very interesting.
I want to know what she looked like before she became a robot.
The comedy was great. It did start a little slow, but once it got going, I didn't feel the runtime past the beginning, so they kind of corrected the pacing at least a little bit. Once,
But the slow start makes sense because of the film you're coming off.
Yeah.
Of. You know, the
Yeah.
ending of Infinity War
It's like
requires
that
you to
show,
have a moment of
Yeah,
mourning,
yeah,
more than
it's
a
true.
moment of mourning.
It's the world
yeah,
coping with that.
Yeah, it's kind of that thing.
You needed
because
that coping
to me,
moment.
I really did enjoy how it started, because it was such a quiet, that quiet, like, you know, Hawkeye on the farm with his family, and then just the way he like turned around, and it's like, what just happened? Like, that was such a to me, that was at least a perfect opening to continue off of Infinity
And it's
War.
so great to see Renner back too, and like he brings a certain kind of gravitas to his performances because he's a little bit higher of a level of an actor than some of these people are, but sometimes he doesn't get the lines to show that, and you get to see that emotion and that like he's just so freaked out when his family just disappears out of nowhere. It was a great scene to see him back in too.
Do you feel it's as good as Infinity War, or is it?
I think I give that one a slight edge, but I mean, I was entertained, and the fact that I just wanted it to have like that conclusion, like definitive is our kind of key word that we've been using, like definitive end, like both for the overall story and for really all the original Avengers, like they had their conclusions.
Yeah.
I like that they did the traditional, like, okay, they set up this really tricky heist. It depends on so many, like, you can't fuck this up, right? But then they did throw obstacles along the way. Like Captain America fighting himself was awesome.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. One of my favorite scenes of the movie where you see young Hank Pym working at S.H.I.E.L.D. with the original Ant-Man helmet that is completely ridiculous and there's no way that would actually work. But I love seeing that, like, original... From the original comics.
From the comics, right, yeah.
Sorry. Just getting rid of your nerd cum. Sorry. But you guys were talking about this middle section of the movie where they go on the time heist. Since we're in full spoilers and talking about, the movie in detail, I love the time heist. I think that's the best portion of the film, which is the middle of the movie. A lot of fun to be had going back to films that we've seen before, going back to the original Avengers, going back to one of my favorites, Thor: The Dark World, getting some love in this movie, but seeing Rene Russo in the movie. So I loved all those little references to earlier films and seeing characters brought back in that you totally didn't expect. Getting to see Doctor Strange chick, what's her name? The Supreme Sorceress or whatever. Those were some great scenes in the movie. They're not action scenes. They're references to older films. And that's really what stood out in this film to me that worked the best, was all the references and tying us back to the past of the MCU.
And because everything that you're listing off, I would give every single member of this marketing team, not that they don't already make a lot of money, big raises, because I don't know who in this room watched trailers. I know you didn't. You knew nothing about this movie. You saw next to not even 0.5% of scenes when you saw any of the trailers of this. But you know what I would have loved when they go back in time, and how cool would this have been? Because it would have just been like, it would have really shown how far they've come and that they still remember their roots, not just from Tony Stark, but it would have been so great is when they're mapping out, okay, now we have to choose where and we have to choose when. And one of the places they have to go to is Harlem 2008, and they have to go back in time, and Bruce Banner / Hulk is Edward Norton. And you have the Hulk just looking at Edward Norton and Edward Norton looking at him going, who the hell are you? It would have just been fucking amazing. Like, it would have been so great.
That would have been excellent.
That would have been pretty hilarious.
Even though there's no Infinity Stones there, like, who cares? It just would have been great.
And since
They could have just passed by, right?
They needed to do that with Terrence Howard and War Machine as well.
or even when
Rhodey.
Terrence Howard was Rhodey and like him and Rhodey
That
stand
would have
next to
been
each
so
other.
great.
Who was your MVP in this one, if you had to really think? I know you just-
Captain America.
Yeah, dude.
Nice.
They really
I like that
brought
answer.
him out.
This
of,
guy.
They brought him out of the shithole that he was in the first one. where
Yeah, he didn't get to
nothing.
do much in the first one. Everybody who was shortchanged in that first one had a bigger role in this
He
one, that's for
fucking
sure.
crushes it.
Especially
in this
when
movie.
we see him get Mjolnir. I was
dude.
just like, hell yeah, it's
Oh, yeah.
on now. It's
Yeah, my
on.
shorts are
Spoilers, everybody.
sticking.
I am worthy.
He is worthy.
In fact, from the action scenes, the highlight for me was the three main Avengers: Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America taking on Thanos.
Dude.
Just the three of them before other people arrive. That fight scene was probably my favorite of the movie, and that's where Captain America is able to wield Mjolnir.
First impression, great experience. I had a good time in the theater. There are scenes I got emotional. There are scenes I cheered, clapped. It was just a great film through and through. I like the fact that they concluded it properly.
Yeah.
Conclude their story properly.
Yeah, effects-wise, as an art guy, as a visual guy, you liked all the look of
Yeah,
everything?
the big battle scene, that was really cool. But then
That was right off the comics, man.
Yeah, I mean, as cool as a epic and spectacle as that is, I still kind of preferred like what you were saying when it was the 3-on-1. Like to me, I like the more grounded stuff where it gets really visceral.
Yeah, because there's too much going on in Scream,
Yeah.
and all those people come out. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
and
a
I
lot.
still prefer like those scenes versus like Battle of Five Armies style
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I hear you. But go ahead and give it a gold score if you.
Yeah, so for me, this one was great. So I give it a very solid Marvel 8.
Nice, Mark. Cheers to you, buddy.
Thanks for coming on,
I know
Hawkeye.
you got shit to do, like burying your family that came back and you murdered them all because you're crazy. All right, it's coming straight from New Asgard and a thing of your nightmares. Fat Thor.
I don't know how awkward that was. But... All right.
So, Fat Thor, you are one big walking, talking spoiler alert because let us know what happened. What's going on here?
What happened to your body, Thor? Why don't you answer that first?
You know, I'm a little upset about actually even being pulled out of my video game pit. I spent 5 wonderful years playing video games and drinking beer, and I was pulled out to fight Thanos. So I'm still a little upset.
Did you ever get into World of Warcraft?
No, that was a long time ago. That's not really me.
You've lived World of Warcraft.
It's Fortnite now. It's
Oh,
Fortnite now.
okay. So, anyway, Fat Thor,
Yes.
you just went and saw Endgame with us. Give us your initial reaction on the movie.
There's a lot of good and some bad. It was good. I got to go see my brother. So I got to see Loki.
See him again.
And it looks like Loki might come back.
Well, it looks like that's how they're starting his show because he has a Disney Plus show, and that looks like the Adventures of Loki will be how he disappeared.
I knew that guy was not going to be gone.
I know none of them are gone. That's the whole point. Everybody has a TV show coming. Almost every single character has a fucking TV show coming. Or a sequel coming. Like, why did anybody get killed in this movie? I don't understand it.
I got to see my mom.
That was
good.
excellent.
Oh, dude,
I
that
love
was
that scene.
Rene Russo, man, give her to me.
Yeah.
20 years old, 70-year-old, I don't care.
That was one of my favorite scenes in the movie when I was acting in it and when I actually saw it today.
So you said that there was some bad, Fat Thor. Let's hear about what's bad about it. What's bad about it, Bad Thor?
Well, I mean, this was some serious spoilers, but I guess everybody understands that Captain Marvel is not really that great.
Thank God she was barely in it. Soul show to that.
Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel, I can agree with that. She sucks.
Yeah, so
It's pretty horrible.
she was impressing me in the very beginning. I got the hammer or the Stormbreaker went straight to my hand, and she didn't even flinch.
But that's just because that's her acting. She just doesn't have any emotion.
She has no emotion.
But after that, yeah.
Robot.
And then one problem I had at the end was she just flew through those spaceships like
Well,
nothing.
I'm starting to
That's
assume
her
now,
power.
after seeing her in her own movie and this movie, that her power is that she is a flame ball and she goes through ships. That's her power.
Yeah.
That's it, right? Like, that's what she does. She flies and she shoots through ships.
She was in it for maybe 5 minutes total screen time, and that was way too
4
much.
total lines, which is 4 too many,
Yeah.
but that's okay.
She did have when she finally got on the ground and was fighting Thanos. That was a cool scene.
Sure, yeah. I mean, no, it's cool because it's a visual feast, but I've loved the scene where Scarlet Witch just decides to fuck
Yes.
Thanos up. And
Oh.
she's just like fucking tearing him apart.
Yes.
Like, I think that I wish that she would just dismember Captain Marvel and we'd be done with that character in this franchise.
The Asgardians of the Galaxy.
Oh,
I can't wait for
Don't
the next 10
tease
years of these movies.
I think they know what they're doing, and they can't tease us with that and not give it to us, right? Mm-hmm. That is a fucking cock tease if they just end it there and then there's a Guardians 3 and then where the fuck is Thor?
If you have seen the movie, you know Iron Man does not make it out of this movie alive. Captain America retires. So the three, big main heroes, 2 of them are out of the MCU. And he's got to you can make a Thor 4, but I think integrating him with the Guardians of the Galaxy, which is
perfect.
The best cast in the MCU
It's perfect.
running, it just makes sense. And moving forward with kind of these space adventures. Fuck all this stuff on Earth. I can move on from all these
I
characters.
100% agree. Mm-hmm. I would love to just see Thor with the Guardians for the next fucking 10
You
years.
got Valkyrie in there, you got Loki in there, mix all that stuff together.
Make as Guardians of the Galaxy a movie where they're trying to track down Captain
Yeah.
Marvel and kill her.
Yes! We now have Valkyrie as the king of Asgard, New Asgard on
She's
Earth.
awesome. I love that because
Yeah.
Valkyrie's a fucking beast.
She's awesome.
So great.
You have all the Asgardians that died with the snap back, so now you got a real Asgard.
Except for Lady Sif, apparently, who no one seems to give a fuck about.
Who was your favorite character in the movie?
Yes.
So I have to echo that that Captain America was really badass. I mean,
Totally.
he was fighting to the point.
Love.
He was fighting to the point where his shield pieces were breaking off, and another piece would break off with Thanos' huge double-sided sword.
Double-sided sword thing.
He was just bam, bam, bam. I was like, "What the? I'll kill you!"
Fucking double-sided
And he was
X-Acto
just
knife.
Yeah, and Captain America was still battling it. That was a great scene.
I agree, and that is the kind of fan service, because I know people think that's a dirty word, but I think fan service is not a bad word when it's used to pay things off and when it's appropriately used. I love fucking. I'm not a screamer in theaters, but I get that adrenaline when I see things. And this movie had a lot of that in that last 40 minutes.
I have to agree with you. I know that I'm worthy to hold Malnir and use him.
Sorry, I was
Give it a
talking
try.
about you. As if
Use
you
it
weren't.
any way possible. That was definitely one of the best moments in the movie. But I agreed with you, and I said this when we first came out of the movie theater, that it kind of diminishes the power of the hammer if anybody can call lightning from it.
Well, let me see if I can pick it up.
You want to give it a try?
I will give it a try.
Oh, hey, give me that. That's my hammer anyways. But another really good scene, which was in the same fight, was when I got to swing Stormbreaker and the hammer at the same time.
Yep.
I mean, again,
Well, I had to help you a little bit in that scene
That's-
as well.
that's
But
true.
teamwork, you know.
it was teamwork.
I
Cheers.
think it would have been great if you had grabbed like Thanos and like rubbed him into your belly a little bit.
Like
you
That
did the little
sweaty,
rabbit.
hairy belly.
Hey, listen, this is not easy to make. I mean, I'm telling you what, it's a heck of a lot of kegs of beer, which you also get to see in that movie.
Yes.
So as a Marvel movie, not as good as Infinity War, but close. And I would say that I would watch that. In fact, I'm going to watch it again on Monday in 2 days. It's a really fun movie, really great. Got to see it, and I'm going to give that thing 8 goals.
Nice. Hey, social to you, Fat.
8 is a popular
Thanks for
score.
stopping by from New Asgard.
No
say
problem.
hello to Korg. Say hello to Valkyrie.
I won't be there long. I'm going with the Asgardians of the
All right,
Galaxy.
Thor. Thanks again. We love you.
Let's summon the next guest for sure. Okay, we've got the Wonder Couple, the super-powered love fest of Scarlet Witch and the Vision.
Oh, I thought you were
Come
going
on
to say
in.
Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, but they're not a couple. They're brother and
Only
sister.
in
Hey,
Kentucky.
guys.
Hey, how are you?
It's kind of an honor. Your guys' powers are ungodly. You both were born from Infinity Stones, so we're in good company here. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for
Happy to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, Vision, you were very absent from this movie. Was that on purpose?
Well, apparently, since I was murdered by Thanos and didn't turn to dust, I don't get to come back.
Yeah, that apparently is the rule.
Honestly,
Yeah.
I think they left your body laying on the field in Wakanda. No one even picked it up.
I
It's
mean,
just laying there.
I am a robot. I can be rebuilt.
Do you think they
I'm
made a
just
fire
saying.
pit out of it?
Maybe my friends weren't my friends.
That's pretty fucked up how you had to die twice. You know, once by getting the Infinity thing blown up and then Thanos just ripping it out of your fucking head. But enough about Vision, you're dead. Scarlet Witch, you are so powerful that I can't even understand your powers. They're so badass. What did you think about this movie?
Well, I didn't have enough screen time, but the screen time was good.
You,
But
you
I
showed
didn't-
up and kicked some ass when
I
you were
showed
out.
up and kicked some ass.
You avenged me.
Just right down, got right down to business. So that was good. Overall, it was a very, very fun movie. I really loved it. I was entertained throughout the whole time. I was afraid that it was going to be too long because I heard it was a long run time, but
Yeah.
I didn't feel it.
And it is, but aren't you glad?
Yeah.
I want these movies to be long. 'cause
I
they're fun.
agree. It allowed it to get more emotional and get more, deep into the characters' minds and pasts and history.
Yeah.
So I thought that was very well done.
Yeah.
Nice.
Any issues?
Not enough Batista time. That was pretty much my only.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Who was kind of your who were your guys' like fucking just rock
Your
stars?
MVPs.
Vision.
So I like the comedy, so I say Rocket.
Hmm.
They're kind of
Yep.
a pair. Rocket and Thor. Fat
Yes.
Thor.
Yeah.
Those two together, the screen time was great.
We need
Every
a road
scene.
movie with those two for sure.
Yes.
And we kind of got one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess they realized that because they made a lot of insinuations that there will be that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be cool, man.
Asgardians, I love that.
But I love the Peter Quill, the fighting back and forth for Supremacy of the Ship by Peter Quill and Thor. Just with the looks alone, it's just
Yeah.
hilarity.
Just all Guardians
So a whole movie of
all the
that,
time.
I would be down for that for sure.
It's possible.
Vision favorite moments.
Well, the battle was epic.
Yeah.
I kind of felt like the movie was going to cut off there. Like, it wasn't going to give us that, but it did.
Like it'd be a cliffhanger, and we'd have to wait for another
I
Avengers?
don't know. Like, where does the franchise
That would
go
piss
from
people
here?
off.
Like, I was expecting to get pissed off and have it cut off. I don't know. Like, I mean, I guess it is Endgame, so they have to wrap everything up in a neat little package. But
Right.
Well, it seemed like they're only wrapping it up for certain characters.
here's
You know,
my
like-
question. They killed Thanos in the beginning. They cut his head off. It's pretty simple. Is that because he wanted to die?
Well, it also looked like he was really weak too,
Yeah.
because he did what he wanted
Half
to do.
his side was
He was
burnt.
having a cooking show.
The usual
if you look-
Infinity Stone
He
injury.
did have like Hulkbuster and all Iron Fist or whatever his fucking name is, Iron Giant. What's his name? Rhodey.
War Machine.
War Machine.
Yeah.
He's like
The rescuer.
basically they had him held down, and then Thor just kind of came out of nowhere and cut his head off. So I think it was more like Thanos did what he did. He wasn't really up for fighting. He didn't care.
Well, I mean, like, parts of him cut off easily, and then in the final battle, without the gauntlet, he's just absorbing everything.
Makes you wonder why Thor didn't go for that fucking arm in the first place.
Thanos is a very powerful being, very strong, can handle these fights with the Hulk in terms of strength and stuff, but he's still kind of mortal. He's still immortal to some degree, whatever type of being he is. I don't know, he's not a human, so obviously his mortality is different than a human's mortality, but he's still mortal, and I've always got that from his character from the last film, from Infinity War. He obviously, with the gauntlet, he can do things that no one else in the galaxy can do. But without the gauntlet, he's kind of like every other superhero. He can kick a lot of ass, but they can be beaten down and be killed, apparently.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it
That's
made
how
sense to
comics
me.
are too, and that's how
Yeah.
that's the point. We
But
can't
he's a
just have
badass
the
character.
Yeah, he's
I-
he's been a great.
I think
villain
he's
for
gonna
two
with
movies.
these two, just in these two movies alone. I think he is gonna go down in history as one of those great villains that people always kind of revert back to, a Darth Vader per se.
I have one big scene in the movie that I was like, as my, what the? Thanos decides to drop missiles, bombs, destroys the entire Avengers compound. I mean, there's literally a scene with Ant-Man standing at the window and a missile comes in.
Yeah.
He's not even wearing his helmet. And somehow
Well, his helmet's nanotech. It just goes. Bzzz.
everyone ends up in some kind of basement unhurt. No scratches.
Yeah, that's the first thing we said too. After that, I'm like, someone had to have died in that because there's that wide shot where the whole compound comes down.
Yeah. So he needs to
It
check his
has
weapons.
almost a mushroom cloud. It's that place.
And it couldn't even kill a raccoon. Like you see Rocket, and he's like, I'm
Raccoon's stuck
trapped
under the
this
fucking elevator duct. You're like, can't breathe.
I thought for sure this was when Rhodey was going to get it. That he wasn't going to be able to get out of the suit. He was going to drown. Some kind of moment there. And of course, even he lives with his paraplegic legs. He's still certain characters did finally die in this film, but I still don't think the MCU has balls. If it can nuke the entire facility and have maybe 10 characters in that scene, and every single one of them comes out of the rubble unscathed.
Can't argue with that, man. Can't argue with that.
It's kind of annoying.
But-
So I'm right there with you. That was a scene that rubbed me the wrong way.
But how did you guys feel? We haven't talked about Black Widow, one of the original 6, who died in this movie.
we lost
kind of
Black Widow,
unexpectedly
too.
because there was never like when they just announced she had a new movie coming out, so they really misdirected us with that one. What did you guys think about that?
It should have been Captain Marvel instead.
Yeah.
But no one loves her.
nobody
though,
loves her,
so,
yeah,
she
so-
couldn't be killed.
Yeah, I was pretty pissed
Why?
off.
See,
about those.
and Nebula knows that if you go to Voromir, you have to sacrifice a loved one. Why didn't she send Thor with a keg of beer and he could have thrown that over? Clint was, and that's one of the things. Like, let's talk about that real quick. Do you think that should have been him because of what
I
they
do.
did to his character? and
I
stuff?
think that that was the point of
I
setting
bet
him
you
up to be
Renner fought
Ronin.
to have it be him.
And I think it should be him, but then the whole establishing his family and the
Scarlet
desire
has
to get
no
back to the
family,
family.
yeah.
It doesn't
didn't
erase that
make
he was
sense.
just murdering people for 5 years, though.
But they were all Yakuza and cartel members. They were villains.
Yeah, I know, but it would have been a great moment for his character, and I think
it
that
should have
they
been
all
him.
thought we were going to assume it was just going to
Yeah, I think that's why it plays out exactly that way.
And that
but
scene-
it didn't have the impact that it should because it's just a mirror of the Gamora scene. So like
Exactly.
the
Music,
shot, the
visual
music,
beats,
the visual
everything.
beats, everything, and
Camera
we already
angles.
had the effect through the Gamora scene, and it worked so much better, especially like the way that Thanos handles that moment, that you wouldn't think Thanos would have feelings, and then he does. In this scene, you saw it coming from the moment they even arrive on Vormir, or whatever that planet's called, that these two were going to have to make a decision, and they were setting up that it would be Clint, but then there would be this fight between... I knew everything was going to happen exactly the way it did when those two went to that planet.
The best part about that scene is you have two of the best actors in the MCU playing off of each other in an emotional scene that works really well because both of them have good range and they have this sort of backstory and love for each other that they didn't get into enough in the movies, but you kind of sense it. So what did you think about her death?
About Black Widow's death. Well,
she never liked that bitch anyway.
I figured, I was just kind of thinking, no, I like her. I was actually thinking like, okay, they'll bring her back. Everything's possible and time travel, and they'll bring her back. So also the Hulk. We haven't talked about him very much. You guys need to talk about him.
Bring him up. Bring him up.
I thought he was amazing. He's always been my favorite superhero ever since I was little.
Yeah.
And what they did was pretty unexpected, and it was cool because if you think about it, it gave people hope. Like he saw something as a problem or a flaw, and he embraced it and made it into a strength to bring the best of both.
Yeah, I got to
worlds.
chime in with you there. I think this was the best Hulk we've seen. Them finally letting the Mark Ruffalo performance just come through as the Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
Like it worked in this
did.
version.
I totally agree.
I want to see moving forward. I would enjoy the Hulk in these movies where
Right?
I've never really gotten on board with Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner.
This was
and
the best
Hulk.
one, for
he's
sure.
Just, he's just the big green ball running around smashing stuff. And
I love Ant-Man in this movie.
Ant-Man, that was
yeah.
the other one.
Ant-Man's my
Definitely.
MVP. I haven't given my MVP.
This movie would have never
Yeah,
worked
it was
without
hilarious.
Ant-Man.
Yeah.
They used Ant-Man so perfect in this movie. They actually finally gave Paul Rudd, Scott Lang, a little bit of emotion because he's really worried about his family. It's so beautiful when he meets his daughter.
That's most
Yeah.
emotional scene for me personally.
yeah,
was
it's
him
so
meeting
great.
his
But
daughter
he didn't call her
early on in
Peanut.
the
He
film,
didn't call her Peanut though.
which would have really helped.
It would have been great if he said Peanut.
I also think Tony Stark with his daughter were some pretty emotional scenes.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
even
yeah.
this, watching it the second time around, when at the end when his daughter's talking to Jon Favreau's character about the cheeseburgers,
Oh,
actually was
so
one of the
awesome.
kind of emotional scenes.
Yeah,
for me.
'cause it's-
the second time around, just thinking about anytime you think about a father and a daughter, or parents losing their child, or children losing their parents, it's just a very emotional thing, and so that actually came through for me in the film. But
And how great is that with Favreau's character, who is like, "Where to, boss?" He's like, "I want an American cheeseburger."
Yeah.
The very first Iron Man.
yeah,
movie,
that was a great callback.
See, I wish I could
That worked
remember
really well.
this from the MCU. Like, there's all these references to the other movies that I've forgotten.
Yeah.
We can't.
Like,
we
everyone's-
can't all be
Great.
hardcore nerds.
I guess not. When Captain America picked up Thor's hammer, I'm like, well, that was totally unexpected. Apparently not. Cheers.
You mentioned Ant-Man as your MVP. I gotta
Totally.
say, there
Okay.
is an MVP no one's mentioned yet. The rat that started the whole fucking
Yeah.
movie. Without that rat wandering over the control panel and knowing the right
you go.
buttons to hit, none of this movie would take place.
Okay, so just one more thing about MVPs. I think there are good MVPs, but I consider there to be a lot of them, which is one of the things that this movie did really well, is that without the teamwork and everybody having their own important MVP moment, things couldn't have happened.
Yeah.
Ant-Man had his, Iron Man had his, like everybody, Nebula, everybody had a very, very crucial role.
That's true.
So I thought that was a very good thing. So because of that and for everything else, I would give it 9 gulps.
Right here.
Oh yeah. And
Does anybody want to take time to talk about my ass?
I'd say you have Puerto Rico's ass.
Blasphemy.
Actually, you have the Ukraine's ass.
You are not a patriot, that's for sure.
Wow, what a daunting task to wrap up this gigantic universe
Yeah.
in one movie. And,
2. Yeah.
I mean, to finish it all, and it didn't feel like 3 hours. The pacing was well done, and I'm so impressed that they fit everyone in and gave everyone their due. And I'm going to give it a gulp score of 7.5.
I'm expecting higher.
He's only giving it that low because
I didn't get to be in it.
I see.
Yeah,
That's
I am a
understandable,
selfish
too.
robot.
A couple vision scenes would have helped that score out a lot.
Definitely. I did carry one of the Infinity Stones.
Well,
That's almost on. I almost got it.
so
Hi.
how's it looking?
I can't tell. How's it look to you?
It looks okay. It's
Do I-
straighter than I thought.
Do I look like a Spidey hero?
Kind of.
Yeah?
If he ever decides to go short sleeve, he'll know where to look.
It's summer. Come on, man. It's fucking hot out
That's
there.
true. Spider-Man does need to have a summer outfit. So what do we think of Spider-Man Far From Home? What are your first interactions?
Well, I wasn't the biggest fan of that first Spider-Man in the MCU. I found the Peter Parker character to be grating on me and annoying. I could not get behind him as his teenage self, but he's grown on me over a couple films, and I really enjoyed this one. Well, it's still another Marvel product to some degree. I feel that with most of these Marvel movies that they're all just kind of being churned out by the same machine. There's not enough diversity in the style of filmmaking, but that's what we want. We're now in this series, 20-something movies in. We need the consistency, and what I really give them credit for is still this many films in, continuing one storyline or whatever this connected universe is and making sense of it all. Like this, I really did kind of like what the premise of this film was and how it fits into the MCU, and how it feels on a big, grand scale, an adventure that the Avengers should have shown up to help out with, apparently. But when you kind of know the twists and turns that this film has to give you, that it comes back to being on a smaller scale. And it made sense of why it was just a Spider-Man adventure instead of the whole Avengers.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I think John Watts, the director of the movie, is really directing these movies with ease. And I know that they are still just Marvel products, good ones at that. Like, they're still churning out good product. But I like that he seems to really be like fine-tuning Peter Parker as a person, which is what I liked about Raimi's movies. Is like it was so much more about him as a person, him as a character. And this one, like you said, seems grand. It's very epic in scale to an extent, and then when that kind of changes and you figure out why, it all still at the center of it is about Peter and him wanting to take a break from all this, rightfully so. Don't blame him for that after everything. But I love that I felt more of the Tobey Maguire performance coming through in Tom Holland this time because of his just, I want to take a break. I want to have a girlfriend. I just want to go and tell her how I feel. I just leave me the fuck alone, Nick Fury. Like, I don't want to do this crap. But in the end, he has to, even if he wasn't told to, because that's, he has what he has. He has his powers and stuff like that. And I appreciate that this movie, though it, decides to globetrot and go to Europe or whatever, it still sticks with who like Peter Parker is and what he has to do. And sometimes it's hard. It's like, you feel bad, like even, he has powers. That's cool. But you feel bad for him, and that's kind of my favorite thing about the movie is just Peter Parker and Spider-Man. And I'm glad to hear you say that you liked him more in this one because they're really getting him to be a juicy, meaningful character.
Yeah, no, he's definitely come around for me as a character, one that I could follow in number of films to come, which it seems like we're going to get. He's going to be somewhat of a linchpin for the MCU moving forward, and not necessarily stepping into the shoes of Tony Stark, even though that's a lot of what this film is about to some degree.
That's true.
But yeah, I agree with you that the focus on the character is first and foremost in this movie. The action and the adventure of this film is a little bit secondary, and I'm okay with that because it wasn't the most interesting thing for me in this film. I found Peter Parker and all of his friends, every single one of his friends, what they've done with the characters, to be very interesting and kept me entertained when things like the action scenes are just filled with CGI and the stakes don't feel all that high to some degree. They feel forced as to why certain people are in these moments to create stakes in the film. And so since that's forced, it doesn't really make me feel like there's real stakes there. So
yeah, I love the way they used the kids and the other students and Peter's classmates. Loved that in this movie. I don't think any of the other ones really did that outside of who his love interest was.
Yeah.
At this point, he has like this kind of cool little group of nerdy friends. And I love, I think her name is Zendaya.
Something like that.
She's the one that plays MJ, who I guess is not Mary Jane Watson, but I just love her character to death. I think she's like the best, one of the best, I guess if you call her love interest in the MCU movies, because she's just so at his level and they don't treat her like some idiot damsel in distress. Like she,
I didn't think of that, the various love interests across the board in the MCU because they don't
kids, so you don't really think about it that way, I guess.
Well, they're letting us see, other than Pepper Potts, we don't really get to see behind the scenes of any relationship in the MCU.
No, I forgot about them all.
So this, they're all completely
completely forgettable. Really, they really are. So she's really come around from that first film where she wasn't the love interest, but you knew that maybe it was going to go that direction because she is the MJ character.
And she had funny
to some
little
degree.
scenes in the first one, but you just didn't know.
And it all makes sense. What you see, how her character's grown in this film, like her dark side, essentially. It makes sense that she was kind of that quiet character in the first one that didn't come out of her shell, and that Peter didn't notice her first off.
Yeah, and I love that. I love their play back and forth with one another where she says something outlandish and it's always like about death or depression, and Peter's face, because he's always got this like happy smile on his face. I think it's great.
Even though the character annoyed me in the first one, I do think Tom Holland is a good actor, and it really shines through in this performance. I think in the second film, he has a lot more moments where he can be dramatic and have that connection with her, that nervous connection that I think worked better than in the first film.
He's awesome in this movie. I love him as this character. Like, this is the shining moment in all the movies he's been in so far, is in this one. And that's my favorite thing about this movie is his performance, how they treated Spider-Man, how they treated Peter Parker. I'm so glad that at this point right now they went the direction they did by cutting out certain things, like cutting out Uncle Ben's storyline, cutting out the fact that he's not really a photographer and there's no real Daily Bugle. If there is, it's just .com or whatever. So they've made all these different shifts to keep it its own thing, and compiling different comic book runs to make their own Spider-Man. And I think it's paying off now because you have more time to sit with his character. And, again, the Tony Stark thing kind of fills that in, like you said.
Yeah, it takes the role of the Uncle Ben to some degree, the loss of Tony Stark in the MCU and what he meant to Peter Parker, how he was a mentor. It fills that role completely, where we still have the character that he learned from, that taught him with great power comes great responsibility. It's still all there, just with a different character.
Yeah.
And we kind of see that with so many things in this version of Spider-Man. Aunt May is a totally different character. MJ is a totally different character. Even the Flash character is handled totally different.
And I love it.
But we love what they're doing, the changes they're making to make this something of its own.
How cool would it be if we found out Ned was Ned Osborn? And they're like, there's it. I would love to see like a big giant green goblin on a hoverboard. With every movie that I've seen this new iteration of Spider-Man in, I've always enjoyed it. I think he's a great Peter Parker. I think he's a great Spider-Man, and I'm glad that you're so much more on board with him now, because I remember when we reviewed Homecoming, I had opened up the show by saying how awesome I thought he was. I think he's just gotten better, though. If I go back and watch that other one, he's eons better as the character now. I mean, this kid, he's only been playing him for three solid years, but he's been in like 5 or 6 movies as him already.
That's true.
And he's really grown into it. But anyway, I can't wait to see more Spider-Man movies. I love it that we've had 2 Spider-Man movies with the same character, and he's been in fucking high school for both of them, which is great. Hopefully there'll be one more where they're seniors. I hope so. I would love that. Then after that, it doesn't make sense. I give Spider-Man Far From Home 7.5 gulps.
Nice. I definitely enjoyed this one more than the last Spider-Man film. I enjoyed it as another entry in the MCU. It's a fun entry. It does continue the story in an interesting way and keep me invested in the MCU. With everything that happened with Endgame, it'd be kind of easy to just check out and be like, okay, well, that's been enough of that. I don't need more. But I'm actually kind of reinvested of like, okay, I want to see more of where these characters are going to have to go and what the world is like after the events of Endgame. We didn't get enough of it, so I want to see more of that. But yeah, I enjoyed this movie. The action was kind of secondary. The villain didn't totally work for me. So I didn't love every aspect of this movie, but I was entertained and had a lot of fun with the characters, the relationships that are developing in the films. So I'm going to give this a 6.25.
Nice. So now we're getting into spoilers, because this movie is kind of hard to talk about. Like, we're just kind of... We're barely scratching the surface just by talking about how cool Peter Parker and Spider-Man is.
We want to be able to talk about Mysterio and the realities of what happens in this story.
And we're not talented enough of movie critics to be able to talk about Mysterio without giving away too damn much.
So here we are to break the illusion and let you behind the scenes of what happened in Spider-Man Far From Home. Well, who is Mysterio? You tell us, because you seem to know a lot more about this character from the comic books.
Well, big surprise, the Spider-Man villain Mysterio, also known as Quentin Beck, Tech in the comics, is actually the villain of the movie. I don't know why that was such a secret, but
People don't read comics these days, so they don't know.
But I don't know. I don't know. But anyway, so Jake Gyllenhaal is Mysterio. He's Quentin Beck. As with everything they do in the MCU, they fine-tune it to make it fit within this universe. So it's, he's not just some goofy special effects guy that loves to fuck with Spider-Man and robs banks. He actually, again, the second Spider-Man villain in the second Spider-Man movie that gets his hands on some Stark tech, and that's how he creates these illusions, and the illusions are really, really cool looking. Not the elementals necessarily, but when he gets Peter kind of stuck in them, I love that shit.
Yes, kind of the dream sequence moment, or the sucking Peter into the dark space or whatever world.
So I was so happy to see that Gyllenhaal is finally getting to be in a Spider-Man movie after 2001, 2002, when he was gonna be Spider-Man when Tobey Maguire broke his back or whatever.
They should have played on that. They should have had a moment where he
I'm surprised
kind of turned into Spider-Man.
I bet you Gyllenhaal didn't even want to go there.
So since we're into spoiler territory, I wanted to mention that this film goes a little bit meta occasionally. It does. It has a moment where it brings to life the possibility of the Spider-Verse, into the Spider-Verse and the multiverse being a thing that's connected to the MCU. I found that kind of interesting, the way that they played into that. It was a really trippy moment in the film where, what's going on? I thought I was doing a review, a Cinema Gulp review. Where am I? What is this place? Ah! Help! Somebody! Cinema Gulp!
So Jake Gyllenhaal's performance in this, I think we differ. I thought it was very strong. He stole some scenes. I thought he was really great towards the set. That's why we decided to do a spoiler one, because you can't talk about a lot of Jake Gyllenhaal's performance in this movie until you start talking about when he becomes the actual evil Mysterio.
But I gotta say, so I have some issues with his performance. I thought he was bland. I think Jake Gyllenhaal is one of the most entertaining, creative actors out there, always finding ways to make his performances different and surprise me. And I felt him to be bland. I know it was in part of the setup before the reveal, but God, the reveal scene that he does is the worst bit of exposition I've seen in a movie in a long time.
I always thought it was kind of a wink and a nod, though, wasn't it? Kind of like.
Was it? It just seemed like he's in a room full of people who know everything he's saying, so he's only speaking this to the audience, and it goes on and for a long time with flashbacks and all this elaborate stuff.
It's great. I love it.
And it's just like, okay, thank you. We needed to know that as audience members, but this just had no point of storytelling. It just did not fit as reality.
I see what
and do that in that moment.
I see what you're saying, because you're right. Why would he tell everyone that's in the plan, especially when he doesn't know if Peter's going to walk back in 2 seconds? He's literally telling them the whole entire plan. I just feel that by this point, all the filmmakers, they know when they look at a scene like that, they go, that everyone's just gonna say that's exposition dump. So I think in the hands of maybe not such a great of an actor, it might have come off a lot worse. I felt like it was funny because I'm like, they know that this is just a big exposition dump, so I kind of give it a pass because I was enjoying the shit out of it, and because it brings back the person we've all been waiting to see again in the MCU, what's his name, Peter Billingsley from A Christmas Story. He is in the first Iron Man movie, and he has the line, "I'm not Tony Stark."
Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps. Well, I'm sorry. I'm not Tony Stark.
And he shows up in this movie as a disgruntled ex-Stark employee, and it goes to show you that Stark is still a piece of shit, even in death, because you find out he laid off all these motherfuckers.
And so that's the part that I did enjoy. Even within that scene, there was moments that I was like, oh, that's clever. I really liked how once we find out that these are all disgruntled Stark employees who have helped him build various tech that he took the credit for and all this stuff. That's really cool that 2 Spider-Man movies, essentially the Avengers and Stark tech, is what kind of leads the villain on their path to get revenge or try to make money or whatever their motivation is. It's from something from the past that Stark had his hand in, that he didn't even know he caused this problem that is festering long after he's left it. And
Mysterio is like a master of illusion, like he, in the comics and stuff like that, he uses special effects wizardry and all that stuff, and it was cool how they incorporated it into the Marvel fabric this time by having it be Stark Tech, and it does make it more believable when you see these ridiculous large-scale elemental creatures and that he's fighting them. I mean, there's a lot of holes. There's a lot of holes with how it actually physically destructs the world around it, and like these drones that get used. It's a little
They do
ridiculous.
give you some explanation on
They
that
do,
stuff.
even the explanation doesn't really make it any more plausible. But because we talked about how we both just really like the relationships and the people, especially the students, because some of the action and some of the special effects and stuff like that just felt like, we've seen it.
Yeah.
And it's perfect as to why, because Mysterio is, this Quentin Beck guy is like, what can I do to like dupe the entire world? Well, right now, the people that saved the world, you have Thor and you have this Doctor Strange guy and blah, blah, blah. So he created his entire look after kind of this familiar look that people would just associate with as a hero. Because he's got this like Asgardian looking look to him, and then he has a lot of Doctor Strange features.
Well,
So,
as he says, if you got a cape and lasers, people listen to you.
yeah, and
these
I
days.
think the scenarios he creates with the elementals, those scenes do feel familiar, and they do feel like we've seen this before. I think that's because that's what he knows how to create that'll get people, because he wants those to be bigger.
He's staging an Avengers action scene because he's seen the movie.
Yeah. Lucky for him, every Avenger, because this is a solo movie, they're always busy doing some other shit.
There are two stingers in this movie that actually explain a lot. Like these are probably the most important stingers I've ever seen in an MCU movie in terms of storytelling.
should have just been the end of the movie.
Yeah,
But I don't
it
think
really
they wanted
should
to
have been.
end up with a cliffhanger. So
So there's a cliffhanger. Do we want to go into detail on
why not?
exactly what happened there?
Absolutely.
So the cliffhanger is that the world is told by a dying Mysterio that basically one last illusion, one last trick on the world. He makes everyone believe that really Spider-Man was behind all of this, the whole movie, all the bad stuff going on in the movie. He uses one last illusion to trick everybody into believing that Peter Parker did all this. And he also tells the world that Spider-Man is Peter Parker. So in the next adventure, the cat's out of the bag.
Through some very basic sound and visual editing by Peter Billingsley's character from A Christmas Story.
100%.
I'm sure you could figure it out that shit was doctored. Like, you put those glasses on and say, hey, look, this video was tampered with.
100%. Yeah. But then the other stinger that I loved so much, which puts the way you see Samuel Jackson's character in a different context in the film, once you've gone through it, you get a little moment with some scrolls from Captain Marvel at the end, the Ben Mendelsohn character and some other character.
I can't remember his name in the movie.
No, but
he was my favorite part of the movie.
And he's one of my favorite parts of this movie with only 10 seconds of screen time. He's so funny, just the way he plays that character.
I want to talk real quickly about Samuel Jackson and Nick Fury, because I did not like his performance in this movie at all. And when you find out, when you see that very last stinger, it all makes sense, and you're like, he actually was great. It's only these little subtle differences. Because he's always kind of like a hard ass, but he's such a jerk in this movie. He's such a dick to Peter, and
it came across as something forced and not right with his character, but they make it make sense.
And Maria Hill the same way.
Yes.
She's usually funny. She would have been really cool and sweet to Spider-Man when she met him, but she was stoic and she didn't speak. And then there's all these really shady looking motherfuckers that are supposed to be I guess new SHIELD agents.
Yeah,
and you're who are these fucking people?
I love that scene when they make the one badass guy be the bus driver. That was actually, there was a lot of great humor in this movie. The first, definitely the first half. It kind of wanes towards the end, but the first half with all the relationship stuff, we've got this hilarious relationship forming between Aunt May and
Jon
Favreau's character,
who kicks ass, and he's so great.
He's really funny in this, and has even some kind of touching moments as well. So.
But just from the comedy, the very first, when the Marvel panel scroll thing's happening, they have "I Will Always Love You" playing. You're like, this movie's at least gonna be funny. And I love it. It's the school doing
a school video,
a little memoriam thing for. And I love to just have this really grainy picture of Vision, because no one knows who the hell that is.
Well, and then even the last one's got Getty Images over it because they borrowed the image or whatever.
I'm just always having fun when I'm watching. But that's biased for me too, because I've loved Spider-Man since I was a little kid. He's the most relatable superhero I think that's ever been written, because he's not rich. Now Marvel's kind of going, now he's got fucking basically Stark Industries is his in a way, so it's gonna be a little different, but I think it'll still, they know what they're doing, and I think it's great to see John Watts come back. I like that, Peyton Reed stuck around for 2 Ant-Mans, hopefully a 3rd if they ever make that. I want to see the John Watts guy continue, because I like his self-contained stories within the MCU. I like it that they're using they're having these guys come in and make their own vision, and they're not disposable like the Thor movies. There's a different fucking director for every one of them.
Yeah. I don't know if we touched on the blip much, but
No.
I found it very interesting. They could have done more with it throughout the entire film, but they give us some interesting exposition at the beginning about where the world is after the loss of the heroes, of Tony Stark, and everybody coming back from the snap. They call it the blip. And like what the people who lost time, how they reconnect with the people who did not leave and stuff.
And
there
they
was some
give us
fun
that
stuff
prologue within the tone of this movie. So it's not this big depressing like, oh, 50,000 people washed up on shore this morning that were all on a cruise ship, and then when the cruise ship wasn't there when they blipped back are all dead from drowning.
I didn't think of that.
Or what about the people that blipped in the fucking in a fucking airplane? They just all fall from the sky.
It didn't go
this
into
movie
those
doesn't do
details.
that. It uses it almost just for laughs.
Yeah.
Which is good for this movie.
But yeah, the world certainly kind of got back to its thing pretty quickly.
It didn't seem
like
very
it was
different.
It was very different. Everyone's still on vacation, and
I like
this
the
and
little
that.
touch that Venice is continuing to sink more and more and more, and like they noticed that, hey, our movie actually takes place in 2023, so we should show Venice
didn't
as
even
a
realize that.
Yeah, like we should show Venice because Venice is sinking.
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
like so let's show a quick scene of what Venice may look like in 5 years as opposed to now, and I was like, that's a good detail.
Oh, okay, I didn't even get that.